Susan Bush for SGTV. At long last, Sullivan Goss is getting ready to mount our first exhibition for Phoebe Brunner, Further to Fly. One of my favorite things about working with artists is finding out about what makes them tick. Seeing their studio and talking to them gives you special insights into who they are, how they go about their work, and maybe even a little bit about how particular works of art come into the world. So with that in mind, I invited Phoebe to sit down and chat about her art, her inspirations, her method, and her love for oil paint and the Central Coast landscape. Phoebe grew up riding horses on one of the largest California cattle ranches that was still intact when she was a kid. She spent much of her time alone on her horse, riding out across a pristine California landscape.
As long as I could open and close a gate to keep the cattle in or out, I could go anywhere. And it was very peaceful, and it was like a refuge, and it was a therapy for me, and it was a sanctuary, and it was obviously a humongous influence.
Nevertheless, I was intrigued to find that during her first years as a painter, her work often featured figures and architecture. Later, she told me the story about what inspired her move to the landscape.
But when we were up at Glacier that time, I had taken with me a small panel, about, 8 by 10, and some paints, and I actually did a plein air painting. And I went, wow, this is the landscape, and it was just me in it, and I wasn't trying to add anything. I was just directly connected with it, and it was like this huge revelation for me, and I realized this is what I want to do.
By painting what she feels most connected to and what she knows most intimately, Phoebe's been able to turn her imagination loose on landscapes up and down the state of California. Her paintings are inspired by real places, but they aren't site-specific. Rather, they are the result of views that resonate and linger in her imagination.
But yes, I have to know a place. I have to have been to that place and absorb it in me internally somehow, and then reinterpret it. Basically, that's what I do. I reimagine it. I combine images. I combine a lot of different images that I get from different sources, or I completely invent it out of my head, or, and this is what happens a lot, is one painting will lead to the next painting, and it becomes a very organic series of paintings.
So Phoebe doesn't just record the landscape. She looks to it for inspiration to make paintings that are beautifully crafted in oil.
I have a real romance with oil paint, and the juiciness and the butteriness of it, the oiliness of it, you can't beat it.
She uses the richness and the luminosity of thickly painted oils to create a surface that seems forever wet, forever fluid, and therefore forever in motion. That sensation of energy, rhythm, and motion are amplified in some cases by the scale of her work. Phoebe tells me that it all begins with the most elemental part of a painting.
My stroke. It's a physical thing. I have a certain scale to my stroke, if that makes sense, that can invoke a kind of energy that relates to the image that I can't. It's very difficult for me to get with little tiny brushes and a little tiny thing. And I feel that when the paintings are large, because they're landscapes and because they generally go to a big horizon or they show a big space, physically you can feel like you can walk into that painting, and I love that.
Of course, Phoebe has also taken on the challenge of painting smaller works on tree slices and panels with more intimate views. She tells me that the smaller works invite us to think about what we're looking at without the distraction of the brushstrokes. They become more about the image. Recently, Phoebe began to paint close-up views of California poppies. They are dreamy, magical, and slightly surreal.
It wasn't really about, again, I'm not trying to portray the botanical accuracy of a poppy plant, but the idea of regeneration.
Make fine art a part of your life. Further to Fly, Phoebe Brunner's first exhibition with Sullivan Goss, will open on Thursday, April 7th. Come see it.